This week on Moulz Mel at the Movies, we discuss the 1993 film Judgment Night, directed by Stephen Hopkins and starring Emilio Estevez, Dennis Leary, Cuba Gooding Jr., and Jeremy Piven. Four friends on their way to a boxing match get caught in heavy traffic, so they take a shortcut in order to get there faster. Unfortunately, it leads to them witnessing a murder, which leaves them running for their lives. This week, on Moulz Mel at the Movies, let's go see Judgment Night. Welcome back to Moulz and Mel at the Movies.
Can I just say off top, I don't know how our guest feels yet, obviously, but I'm just going to apologize now because at risk of spoiling my own review, because I don't think we've ever had a guest on, this is our first guest for a film review segment, but even with the music, I don't think we ever had a guest on for something that I felt so coolly about. So I don't know how you're gonna feel here, but if you feel anywhere like how I feel, I'm apologizing now that you had to watch this.
Okay. I thought you were apologizing that maybe you were gonna trash talk a film that maybe our guest is a big fan of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, I mean, I apologize for that too, because if you like this thing, then I'm gonna feel even worse, But I can't lie. I will not tell a lie, as one of those presidents said. I don't remember. Yeah. Well, would you like to introduce our guest?
Yeah, I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here. So,
definitely.
I'd like to introduce our next guest. This next guest is someone who I discovered on YouTube because I watch a lot of videos about Blu-rays, but more specifically than Blu-rays, the films that are on the Blu-rays. And
pornography, yeah.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that earlier, actually. We got some pornography aficionados in the house tonight.
That would be me. That's me.
And our guest, I would say, a true connoisseur of oddball cinema. Nice. A man who I enjoy watching sit at his desk and talk about movies for hours. Please welcome Michael Keane.
Hi, guys. Oh, my goodness. Look at this crowd. Oh, my goodness. You didn't tell me this whole crowd was going to be here. Holy butts.
This is Moulz and Mel at the Movies, Michael. Come on.
Oh, no, I mean, fair enough. Wait, can we curse on this show? I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I just realized it is a rap primarily show. That would make sense.
Yeah.
You could say fuck. Hi, I'm a filmmaker turned YouTube personality with a crazy nearly 3,000 subscriber base, which is a pretty big deal in 2007. I talk about primarily, I guess, cult movies is the way to. A lot of them don't even have a cult following, but a lot of releases through distributor Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, stuff like that. It's funny. I was going to spend 2020 putting out my thought in 2019 was I'm going to make 2 movies this year. I spent 2018 and 2019 making like a movie each year. I'm going to go balls to the fucking wall. And then everything went to shit. And I focused on my channel, and it was already growing a bit by then, but I was still under 1,000 subscribers. And I now have this weird little following over on the YouTubes that I was not anticipating. So nice. That's where I am. I also work for Screen Rant. So if you watch videos on YouTube and you find yourself going, this person doesn't know dick about movies. Why do they have a job? That's where some people might know me from, is mean comments on Screen Rant videos.
Okay, nice. Well, I've actually been there a few times, so I'm familiar.
I found you through your Vinegar Syndrome reviews or unboxings initially, and there's not many physical media YouTubers that I watch. That's no shots at any of the other ones, but There's only, so many hours in the day, but
I'm just that good. I get it.
Your channel is really probably my favorite of all of them, to be honest. And I'm really glad that you're joining us here. And I know we're both mutual fans of Patrick H. Willems.
Yeah, we are.
Very, very talented YouTuber you guys should check out. But we're here today to discuss the 1993 film Judgment Night.
Unfortunately.
By the way, I do have a Patrick Willems story to toss in somewhere at the end or whatever.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
we definitely tell stories here.
Mel, if you don't mind, can you explain to Michael the rating system so that we could rate the film and then we'll get into our thoughts?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is our rating system. It was really crafted for use in a musical sense, but we've adopted it for our film reviews, and I think it works pretty well. So it's a simple 1 to 10 scale. Each number corresponds to something. I'll just read them the usual spiel. Each song is rated on a scale of 1 to 10. These numbers do not reflect the quality of the film, as that is indeterminable. Instead, each number reflects a level of enjoyment. In short, here's what each number means. 10 means it's a perfect movie to you, one of your favorite movies of all time. 9 means you love it. 8 means you like it a lot. 7 means you like it. 6 means it's all right. You don't dislike it, but you can't say that you like it. 5 means you feel practically nothing about it. 4 means it's not the worst movie you've ever seen, but you dislike it. 3 means just you dislike it. 2 means you hate it. And 1 means you absolutely can't stand it. One of the worst things you've ever seen.
And if you like, basically.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I've seen that.
Good.
Okay. Last thing is if you want to add a plus or a minus to those numbers, it's like basically saying a light or strong version. Like a 8 plus would be like a strong 8, or a 6 minus is like a light 6. Has no mathematical or statistical value, but it's just like if you want to tweak it a bit, you have that ability. And because on our show, ratings aren't really static or anything, it's also an indicator that in the future it could go up or down, or, wherever you go, you could change your mind about things. So with all that said, I guess we can, if you got a rating in mind, you can kick us off, or, we could lead off. Okay.
Sure. That's that. Wow. Y'all's ratings are much more mean than mine are. I if I transfer my Letterboxd 5 out of whatever score to a 10, for me a 5 is like that was all right, that was all right, and then 6 is like good, like a strong good. But I would say on that scale probably 6 plus.
Okay, nice.
Bordering on 7. Before you added the plus, I was going to go 7, but I would say my overall feel is like a 6 plus. And I'm sure we'll dig into why.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'll hit our customary. It's like the nay buzzer. Yeah. Okay. 6 plus. Almost a 7.
Mel, you've been very outspoken throughout this whole review, and you've been, it seems very eager to express your.
I don't want to sound like I'm in a hurry to trash it. So, I'm not in the trashing business. I'm actually
just asking. Do you want to give your rating next? That's all I'm asking.
I mean, yeah, sure. I'd love to. They know me. I've been called many names. Generous Mel. I've been called the Song Liker. I have a shirt in the merch shop right now. The Song Liker has logged on. I've been known to be nice to things. I tend to. It takes a lot for me to actively dislike something. I don't know. Maybe. It depends. It depends, on the situation. But here, it's still not quite active dislike, but this is the least enjoyable film we've seen this season thus far for me. I'm going to go with a 5 plus.
5 plus. So you feel practically nothing, bordering on it being high.
It all averages out to just me feeling practically nothing about it. There are elements that are like in 4 territory. There are elements in like 6 territory, but ultimately I walk away like, I feel no ways, and we'll talk about it. But how about you?
I wish I could. I wish we could have a first time ever moment here on the show, and I could say Moulz and Mike connect.
There you go.
Not quite. But almost. I'm going to give this a 6 minus.
Okay.
So I'm in between you guys. I like it a little bit more than Mel. I think I'm probably just under Michael.
Right. You see, Michael has a 6+. You got a 6-. I got a 5+. Okay.
All right. That's good. I'm glad. I'm glad that none of us really are gonna have to fight. That's all.
Yeah, I feel like, and to be fair, I'm one of those people who I like most movies.
Same. I'm the same way. Yeah,
I really like the likelihood of me trashing a movie is aggressively slim, to the point that I feel like that's one reason I have like the worst growth on YouTube is because a lot of people love like, oh yeah, drama of just fucking hating the shit out of this motherfucking movie. And I'm just like, you know what? That was all right. That was fine.
I relate. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. You did the Friday the 13th Jason Goes to Hell review.
Piece of shit.
Where you talked for nearly an hour or more on you hate this film. And I disagree personally, but I appreciate the effort that goes into making these videos. So
well, that one's funny because I that was my rant. I use a pretty strict script to help my editing side of things. So it just takes 10 goddamn years to make videos if I don't do that. Mm-hmm. But when I did the Friday the 13th reviews, it was basically just I had some bullet points and I would go through them. And that one, I just found myself ranting and raving. Not raving, just ranting about this movie. And so I released that as its own separate thing outside of the review because I thought people would hate it. And I just was like, well, I talked for a goddamn hour. Might as well put it on the internet. And that one actually still gets comments. It got a shitload of views for me anyway. And you know what? I'm glad that people like what they like. I do not understand why that resonated with anyone, but good for them. But I can't fucking stand Jason Goes to Hell. And I'll admit it's partly because Adam Marcus sucks a big fat one. It is mostly his personality that, like, I used to just be like,
personality,
yeah, because it used to be kind of a like, oh, this movie kind of isn't great, but at least it has like some cool kills, has that cool like girl getting torn in half thing, that's sick as hell. And then I hear him talking about it, and I'm just like, this movie is like the smell of puke in cinematic form, and it's just not changed since then. So I guess I have Adam Marcus PTSD is kind of the point I'm getting across here in this tangent.
But yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, I guess you can, if you did more videos like that, you could get more people, but at what cost? Just to dump on
I'm not going to
movies?
fake my opinion. Yeah, I try to be as honest as humanly possible. Like I joke a lot, and I will engage in the fine art of hyperbole at times, but I'm generally pretty much just, this is my opinion. No, playing around outside of the general jokiness. I just like to be honest, and honestly, I love most movies. It's really, I think part of that is just having made movies, shitty movies, admittedly, but movies. It's hard for me to diss something where I know a lot of work went into it. And so really the only thing that makes me really dislike a movie is when it comes off as like pessimist, like the filmmakers weren't trying, or they had like a specific agenda that was the antithesis of actually making a piece of entertainment for people, or they're just cunts. One of those options.
We are. I feel like, Moulz, I can't speak for you, but I feel like at least you and I, Michael, are eerily similar philosophically. Like I think we're on the same wavelength here.
Well, then you're a good person.
Well, thank you, thank you. I don't hear that much on this show because my co-host is always antagonizing me. So I appreciate.
Listen, the antagonizing is great. It's great for growth, actually, as you heard.
Well, as we just discussed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I think the thing with me is that, yeah, I would myself, have made, I think even calling them independent might be a bit of a stretch. Let's say shot on video movies. And
that's kind, yeah.
Knowing how intensive a technical process that filmmaking is, and how many hands are involved in that process to make it work, and how difficult it is to actually have a vision for something and come out of the end of that vision with the thing you had in your head. I mean, even the shittiest movies I have a lot of respect for. But we can talk about respect and we can talk about enjoyment, because I think those are two separate things. And
Absolutely.
point blank, I didn't enjoy this movie. I never felt like this movie went into third gear, when it's a movie that spends a lot of time establishing tension, and to me with little payoff in that regard.
Oh, I disagree. Oh, that's
Really?
exciting. Yeah. I mean, I do think that there is an issue with how it goes about creating the tension, or not creating, but I guess sustaining. I think that at some points it works really, really well. At some points it works less. I think, for example, the apartment building sequence doesn't work nearly as well as it should. I feel like that should have been like the centerpiece of the movie. And a big chunk of the second act should have been in that apartment building, and like dealing with these characters that they're meeting. Because like a big problem I think with this movie is that the class politics are like all over the place. Partly I think it's so fixated on the idea of this like suburban nightmare, where it's like, oh, these are a bunch of white yuppies who don't know what a real struggle is, and they get tossed into this situation that's like the ultimate nightmare of all white suburbanites. And then of course, we got to get Cuba Gooding Jr. in there, just to make sure that we're nice and diverse, and we don't make it too much about the white guys. We got a black dude, so it's fine. Come on, guys, it's fine. And I think because it's 92, 93.
93, yeah.
Yeah, they don't quite, they should, because we have a nice pool of movies about classism and racism to pull from at this point. For some reason, like, because it's the early 90s maybe, and because it's a notable, like a Hollywood production that went through a lot of producers' hands. I know that the screenplay by I don't know how to say his fucking name. The writer. I know it changed substantially from his initial screenplay to what we got on screen. So I think that, maybe there were a lot of elements like dissecting the class stuff. Like maybe there was more time in the apartment building. Maybe there was more time dealing with non-antagonistic lower class characters that were like, it was like maybe massaged out by producers.
Right,
I don't know.
or maybe not painting all homeless people as like unhinged. Psychopaths.
The fucking train.
I'm a college graduate. Yeah.
I loved the boxcar sequence as like an example of tension. Like I think that it made a lot of sense as far like what I think about this movie. Like the short version is it is a very smart screenplay for a very stupid movie. In that it's very economical. It knows that it needs to get its characters from point A to point B to point C. It needs to keep these other characters, the antagonists, on their ass, and it needs them to constantly be put into situations where they are in more or less enclosed spaces or trapped within this Chicago urban hellscape that we've created, which is a good idea. It's basically it's kind of like the Warriors for yuppies. So it's like Weekend Warriors. And I appreciate that. Like, I think there's a lot to be done there. And I think that the end product is suitably entertaining. It from a like 2021 lens, it's, maybe a little that buzzword problematic. But I don't think it's ever, I think it's so silly and so dumb that it kind of gets by all those problematic elements. Like if it was more serious with its subject matter, if it didn't have a screaming, if it felt
like it had something really to say at all.
Yeah, like it's so empty on that level and just about the characters and their struggles. Characters is a bit of a strong word, but their struggles, and they're all played by Titans and Jeremy Piven. That it's one of those. It's a weird it's a weird smorgasbord of nonsense that I had a good time with, and specifically, I think the tension usually works. It's just that it's not timed out right. The pacing is fine. It's just when you look back on it at the end, you're like, but why didn't we spend more time? Like, why the fuck did we have to go in the goddamn sewers? I get it. It's the underworld. They have to go into the underworld and make it back out. I get it. I understand. It's a metaphor. That's amazing. Stephen Hopkins, you're a beautiful director. You made Predator 2. You can do no wrong except for Lost in Space. But like, just keep them in the fucking apartment building. You don't have to build a crazy set with water and shit. And it's a better movie.
Yeah, I felt like we didn't get enough time in the apartment building. I felt like certain stretches where the tension was being dragged out a little bit too much. There were things, though, that I'll say, for instance, Mel, I don't know if you agree with me here, but I think Dennis Leary totally stole the show for me in this movie. He was my favorite character.
I like Dennis Leary as an actor, and I feel like he perhaps was screwed over by the dialogue. And like, he stole the show in terms of performance, I'd say. But like, and it has a lot to, when Michael used the word smorgasbord, I think it's perfect because like and you mentioned maybe it went through a lot of different producers' hands and things. And it's like, I got the sense watching it, it was trying to be a bunch of things at once. I mean, we're having this social commentary, it seems like they're trying to make statements about class politics. It's like when they like first enter the hood, it's like, Jeremy Piven's character, who's like kind of this like straight laced, rich boy, conservative type of dude, making all these like, snide comments. And they're like, hey, these guys are your neighbors. Like, we're probably not even 10 miles from your house. Or it's like, just like, they seem very shoehorned in, like they're trying to make these statements that like everyone in these parts of town, aren't bad. And it's like, but yet like there are jokes like that are kind of just like thrown in. It's like, is this a comedy? Is it a thriller? Is it social commentary? And Dennis Leary's character, I feel like there's a couple of one-liners that actually work for me, but it's like, I'm not really threatened by him enough throughout the film, I
think it's because he's basically, I don't know what Fallon was like on page, but I feel like they got Dennis Leary because Dennis Leary was like becoming like they're making him a thing. He never really took off the way he should have, but he was, this is Hollywood pushing Dennis Leary, so this is like a juicy villain role, and it's like, okay, all this dialogue, fuck it, we're just gonna have him do a stand-up routine, but a drug lord. Instead of a yuppie drug user, he gets to be I don't know what economic status he's supposed to be, but a drug lord, and he gets to do his routine and then push Jeremy Piven off a building, and it's great.
See, that was my favorite scene in the whole movie when him and Jeremy Piven had their face off, and Piven. I mean,
that was tension. That was legitimate tension.
Yeah, that was where it worked for me. Where I felt like it wasn't just running and hiding; it was. We got a little bit of exposition. We got into the psychology of these characters a little bit. And I think that raised the stakes. One of their friends is now dead. And this villain just got like his villainy has been upped a notch.
Right.
Yeah.
He threw him off a building. At that point, I'm like, oh, is this going to be like a slasher where, each guy's going to start getting picked off one by one until Emilio Estevez.
I thought it was headed in that direction.
I thought it was going to be a last man standing situation at one point.
I don't ever think that, but I did appreciate that it was very obvious that Jeremy Piven was going to be the one to die.
Yeah.
In that moment, and it was still tense. I thought that was like beautiful that they managed to get tension out of something where how it's going to end. It's just because it's like, oh fuck, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? I do think that they probably should have gone that more slasher route. I think that from like character arc point of view, it either should have been Emilio Estevez and Stephen Dorff surviving, and I hate to throw Cuba Gooding Jr. under the bus, but he doesn't have a whole lot to do here.
I fully expect it as a black man myself, and as someone who knows about the trope of black dudes dying, I fully expected him to die, and I would have been fine with it.
I thought, especially after he killed someone himself, I was like, okay, they're setting up some sort of like moral justification for his death that'll be coming up.
And like, I mean, like, I think a big problem with the movie there's two big problems. One of them is that, you know, Emilio Estevez's character, he's the one that works the best for me out of the good guys. Just because he has the wife and child at home, which I can very much, I get that. That's one of those conflicts where I'm like, I get it. I want to make it back home to my kid. I want to see my kid grow up. Fuck yeah.
Right.
Fuck yeah, Emilio Estevez. I love you. You and your hockey team, you son of a bitch. And so I thought, okay, well, he's obviously our survivor character. It'd be great for him and Stephen Dorff to survive because Stephen Dorff is, I believe, his younger brother. That's right? Yeah. And I had a toddler crawling around through this entire goddamn movie, so I did miss a few beats here and there.
That would have been a welcome distraction for me.
But them surviving, and of course, you know, it's the big brother looking after the little brother. He's this guy who has learned that life is precious, and you can't just be going around, you know, screwing things up. You got to stop and understand that life has responsibilities. And I think that's a great idea for the character, and it works really well in the movie overall. But to have just him and Stephen Dorff survive together, and it be because he had to step up, or even more importantly, if Stephen Dorff had to step up, that would be great. Conversely, if Emilio Estevez had to sacrifice himself in some way, and Stephen Dorff was the survivor, and Stephen Dorff had to realize through the worst possible tragedy that you know his brother was right and should have listened to him. Also great. Obviously not the Hollywood ending. And I think that's kind of where the problems kind of emerge, is that it is a very Hollywoodized film. And I would say the ending, it was the one point where I was like, this is kind of garbage. This shitty extra, as the cop saying the last line of the movie, saying, "Oh, that's a nice family you got there," in like the most unaffected voice you could possibly fucking have.
Okay, so I'm glad that didn't just stand out to me. Okay,
oh my god, it threw me off. Like I was like, that was a good movie, and then we get this little last sequence where he's going to his friends, and then the cop is talking, and no one's questioning him, and I was like, this. Very blows. Up till this point, I've been with you, movie, but this is fucking garbage.
I mean, it even has like I did appreciate the very, I would say, 90s twist of like him finally getting to the phone and like the gun enters the frame and it's against his head. It's like, oh no, the guy, he's still alive. He survived that like 8-foot fall.
Yeah. I had that same thought.
Cop, you know, it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, right. I miss movies doing stuff like this.
I just want a Michael Keane directed remake of Judgment Night now. With the brother sacrifice ending.
You know, that would be great. I think, you know, that would have worked. Or, you know, to speak to that moment, like on the rooftop with the tension, you know, even though I figured Piven's character was going to perish, like for a second, I'm like, well, he's been kind of a weasel thus far. Maybe he cuts a deal and like rats out his friends and like, you know, does something like, you know, like, I don't know how that would work. And it's like, so now he's teamed up with the villain and, you know, they're hunting them down, or it's like,
and then
you know,
maybe
just,
he kills them
there
anyway.
There are a lot of twists they could have took.
He's such a villain. He's like, hey, thanks for the information. Boom, right off the roof anyway.
Right. You know, that would have been something.
I actually like that Piven does not have an arc in this movie. I legitimately,
yeah, he's just a schmuck from beginning to end, pretty much.
Yeah, because he could, like, I feel like in a weaker script, he would throw him under the bus. But I kind of like that he just tries to use the skills that he started the movie off with, because he talks this dealership into giving him this tricked out 90s RV thing.
Yeah, like
which I loved.
On it and,
I was shocked to see that thing blow up so early in the movie. I was like,
I was bummed we didn't get more RV.
Yeah, I'm a big RV fan, so they kind of hurt to see it explode, but you know
what I was telling you earlier, Mel, like, I still wish the objective of this movie was to see the boxing. So
yeah, he was telling me off air, like, you know, a very like Harold and Kumar-esque sort of thing where like the whole time they're still trying to catch this boxing.
Yeah, and you see it'll cut back and forth to the boxing match, and they you know, the fighters are in the back, they're doing the weigh-in, you know, they're getting like they're lacing up and everything like that, and you know, these guys are out there. The end should have been maybe they just all ended up getting through the front door as soon as the main event started.
You know, that I think that would have, so if they would have leaned into the comedy route, that would have worked. If they would have went like the drama route, I think Michael's thing with like Emilio Estevez's
I
character
love that.
dying
Yeah.
would have worked. Now the brother has to sort of assume, you know, this new responsibility. That would have been cool. But instead we got what we got. And I gotta say, while I'm thinking about it, you know, and I can say this because I'm Black, Cuba Gooding Jr., your character, Mike, not dying. I'm sorry, but what that means is
and you ain't Black.
Because all Black people are supposed to die in the movies. Okay, you subverted expectation in a way that's good for my people, but you know, I think you should have died. It would have raised the stakes.
There is something about movies, especially very Hollywood movies, and I guess especially from the 90s. I guess we're kind of getting better at dealing with, I guess, positive Black representation in movies. We're getting a lot better at that. Mm-hmm. But something about at this time, you either had to be a thug, and this is dismissing like Spike Lee movies, of course, but you either had to be a thug or you had to be a total puss. There's really like, you have to be like aggressively, whitewash isn't the right word, but like the way, I don't know, it's just, he feels so, like it feels like they're trying so hard to say this is an educated Black man. He is not a thug. Thank you. We're still going to have him kill somebody, but
his character was hard to pin down because like there were moments, like I was telling you know, my co-host off air, I'm like, he was like borderline psychotic. Like he was like losing his mind towards the end, and then like he, you know, be brought back to Earth, and then he'd like lose his mind again. It's like he was like really unstable. And like they tried to play it off. It's like anti-macho commentary. It's like you don't always have to be a hero and be like gung-ho about things. But he was like, had this wild, crazy look in his eye. And it's like after he killed that guy, it's like, oh, is he gonna like snap and start shooting at his friends? Like what's happening here? Like that never happens. Like, you know, it's just, I wasn't sure like what was trying to be done with it.
There's a lot of uncertainty here. And I think it does come down to too many cooks, kind of, again, massaging things out. And I feel like whatever character he had was massaged out, and it just became, well, you know, it's crazy. This is his follow-up to Boys in the Hood. That is insane.
I was wondering.
Maddening.
So this was his like very next film.
I'm pretty sure this was like right after.
I'm thinking of when Jamie Foxx did Ray and he won the Oscar, and then his next film was Stealth.
Okay, it can get worse.
Listen, his agent, I gotta say,
cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh man. So I mean, this movie never fully bored me. Like I wasn't just sitting there the whole time, but there were moments that I thought were very intriguing and engrossing, and then there were other moments that I was just kind of at risk of zoning out, and I had to force myself to pay attention.
Well, it's definitely one of those 90s thrillers that just is, it's a simple premise with a relatively simple direction, simple characters, you know, not too in your face about anything. There's some stylistic stuff here, a lot of split diopter shots. Oh, a lot of split diopter shots.
Hey,
and I quite
it is well
those.
made. I'll give them that. It's well made, but you know something? I was telling Mel off the air, it reminds me of a movie that I would have seen on WPIX Channel 11, WB11, if you will, in New York in the 90s on a Saturday afternoon. Like they'd play like Rambo 3 or, you know, something like this. And it would be slightly edited for TV. And it would be something that I'd have on in the background while I'm playing with my action figures or something like that. And it's just this feeling that like at the time I wasn't able to pin down, but it was depression. It was this malaise, this ennui, if you will, of being young and just like housebound on a Saturday, and you're just playing with your toys, and this shitty movie's on TV, and you don't even have the strength within you to grab the remote and change it to something else.
Exactly. Like you're sort of invested, but not really. It's like on, like you look back and forth, you're playing with the figures, you watch it, like it ends, you don't really care about,
but that's what I mean when I say it never kicked into third gear. So Michael, last week we did Cradle to the Grave, which was sitting at like a flat 7 for me in the first 2 acts. And then the third act just gets into like so much wild and crazy bullshit that I just had to respect that it was going, it was going like balls to the wall, and it was going to earn that 8 as it kicked up into third gear. And I feel like this film has moments that threaten to do that, but never go all the way for me, except for that rooftop moment with Piven and Dennis Leary.
Yeah, I will say I did really like the final fight scene. I was a little.
Oh, yeah.
It weirded me out that they just like Dennis Leary dies in such a. I don't know, like
he just falls.
He dies like a henchman. He dies like I feel like
not like the kingpin. He's just like a regular jobber, just gets thrown off the thing.
Yeah, and I wonder if that might have been in order to get that last twist in there, where because like it's one of those things where like, well, that can't be how he died, and so when the gun comes into frame, like, oh, okay, well, there he is for the final bit. But it felt like maybe like Peter Green should have died that way, or the guy from the musician who plays the other henchman. I can't remember his name.
Is it like the bald guy?
Yes, I don't remember all their hair choices, but but Peter Green was the number 2. He was also the main villain in The Mask a few years later, and he's great. He should have been in there more. Like he arguably, like he should, like it shouldn't have been a number 2. It should have been partners or something. Because like something about Peter Green, he's like the best villain face ever. He just like you see him and you're like, that's the bad guy right there. That's him, officer. That's the guy.
Okay, I just looked him up and like, yeah. So the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, he reminded me of the guy who plays like Scarecrow in Batman.
Yeah.
They have similar faces to me. But, like he does have that villain face.
Yeah, and when he talks, like he doesn't talk as much in this as I would have liked, but when he talks in movies, he also has like that kind of seedy appeal to him that it's hard to even describe. But Peter Green's fucking great, and so when he was taken out of the picture, I was a little sad because I was left with Dennis Leary's stand up, which is fine, is good. I think Dennis Leary does a great job, but I could have used more Peter Green. This regarding like the feel of the movie, like that Saturday, like just watching movies, kind of lazy. It reminded me of a movie called Mad City from '97, starring John Travolta and I think Sean Penn. Dustin Hoffman. It was Dustin Hoffman. Which I remember watching at like my aunt's house on like a small TV. It was just like one of those VHS tapes that was laying around, and I remember it just being one of those movies where I was like, that was a film. And I enjoyed myself. I had a good time. And it's and it's one of those things where it sticks in your memory just because of how it is. Like it's you can watch like a fucking Ingmar Bergman masterpiece and it will not stick with you as much as this
like mediocre film.
Yeah, because it's like such a feel. It's not even like a movie. It's just this is
as the kids would say, a vibe.
Yeah, it's a vibe.
It's
definitely all I can tell you about Mad City is, if I can recall, the DVD came in one of those snapper cases.
It did, yeah. I don't know why I remember that as well, but yeah, I know a lot more about Mad City than I. Yeah.
So Mad City. I mean, shit, man. There's so many of these random films that just came along, and they make this like imprint on your brain, regardless of how you feel about them.
Yeah, I think it's because they're so down to a formula. It also helps that like the '90s had a very specific look to it,
right?
And it's again, it's a vibe. It's not like the 80s is the fucking 80s, man, and the fucking 70s, bro. Oh, the 70s. And like the swinging 60s. But the 90s is just that's the 90s. I don't know. We got some big chunky cell phones. We got but not everybody has one, and but we do have plenty of car phones and RV phones. And we have these clothes that are very maybe stylish for the time, who knows. And Dennis Leary's a star, and that's the 90s. It's such a weird feel, but I at the end of the day, pretty fucking jamming movie when it's not in the sewer or,
Okay.
misplacing its time. Probably could have taken 10 minutes off. Again, that goddamn sewer scene. But
now it makes sense too why they reuse musical cues from Predator 2 in this movie by Howard Shore.
Actually, I don't think those are reused. I think it's just meant to sound similar. If I remember, I did a little bit of reading, and my understanding is that they threw out the original score that was very synthy, very techy, or electronic. That's what I was looking for, electronic score, because they wanted it to be more of a chase movie. So they added more of an orchestral score, which is really good. Like, I know that we're like, the talk is eventually going to evolve into how fucking fantastic the soundtrack is, but the score itself is actually really good. And my understanding is that because they wanted this actiony, game of cat and mouse vibe, he asked him to, or the director asked for the score to be more in the vein of what he did for Predator 2. Since they both did that movie, it, I guess automatically is going to wind up with a bit of a Predator 2 sound.
Okay,
that's my understanding.
It was a situation where, like a Tarantino situation, where he'll reuse some of those like Ennio Morricone musical cues and whatnot. So if this is original,
same composer, same director as Predator 2. Yeah.
Well, it kind of threw me off because, like, much like the characters, where I can't tell exactly what they're trying to do, and like the tone of the film is like when they get to the sewers, they start playing like mournful horns, and it's like, we should take a stand, we should stick together. And I'm like, I thought this was like a thriller. Now it's like an emotional drama, and it's like, and it's and about the soundtrack. So I was excited to see this film because this is apparently regarded as one of like the best hip hop soundtracks of all time. So, I go into it and I listen and I'm like, okay, there are 11 songs here, hopefully I like a good handful of it. Not to spoil the review, but I disagree with people saying this is one of the best hip hop soundtracks of all time. So I was especially looking forward to the film because I tend to like films more than I do albums in terms of, enjoying them. Because like you were describing earlier, I generally like watching movies. Like, I like movies. I'm a lot more critical with music, but this one, to my surprise, couldn't even like match the level of another not great movie we just recently saw, starring like Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa as like stoners in high school. Like, not a great film, but I found more to enjoy in it than this one, where it's like every time I felt like they had a chance to develop this thing and go in an interesting direction, it kind of stayed too formulaic. And then times where I wanted it to be formulaic, it was kind of like strange. It's like, even from the very beginning, I must say the first 15 minutes of the film, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of going to like this. Like, I like this slow-mo intro. It feels very dramatic, like something major is going to happen. We get the established, the setup, he has a kid, he has a girl at home, like, and he's going to hang out with his boys. And once he gets around them, like, we're going to find out, like, he's just ready to let loose. But to my surprise, like, his wife should give him more credit because he's like a lot more straight-laced than she thinks he is. Like, he's the father figure of the bunch. And, his, like, I guess troubled, younger brother isn't really all that troubled because they all kind of turn into Boy Scouts other than Piven by the time, like, they reach, the hood, which I have to say reminded me, I've been to hoods. They look sort of like that, but this film kind of made it look like, the post-apocalyptic Terminator world, like, it's like garbage blowing. And I'm like, all right, it's not this bad. Okay. But it's like, they find the guy that's shot on the road and all of a sudden they're like real straight-laced and we got to help him. And like, this kid's dying. And I'm like, you guys were just like goofing off in traffic and ready to fight. And now it's like, you want to save this kid. And it's, and then I do appreciate the moment with his brother kind of like shedding the tough shell. And he's like, I'm scared. And so like, they have like this moment, it's like real tender, like, but it's just oddly placed. It's like, okay, I think this was supposed to be a moment that was like a big resolution, but instead it just kind of feels like it's here and it's like, okay, I guess I should care about the younger brother's emotional state, and he's going to connect with his older brother finally. But not enough was done for me to truly care about that. It was a lot of things happening. I would almost bet that like this was passed between multiple people and it just turned into Judgment Night, which is what we got, you know.
I can agree with that. I think that I think if we had more to like going with these characters, then we would be better off. But they just don't have, like, we know, and I might have missed something, so please tell me if I did. But what I gathered was that they used to be more wild, doing
like
stuff.
That's the implication. Like,
and he used to,
Frank, you used to be, you know, this and that, and
and he was the leader of their like little friend group who I don't know jerked off on things. I don't know. I have no idea what their thing was, but they did stuff together, and now they're kind of moving apart, or at least he's moving apart because of his family life, which is relatable. Like, I like that idea, right? But we never really dig too deep, and we don't even need to dig deep into Emilio Estevez's character. I feel like he can be, minus the family, a bit of a blank slate. We need more with these other guys because there's not much going on. It's all kind of just cookie cutter as far as their backstories. And if you're going to be placing all of the tension on these characters making it out, you know, we don't need 45 minutes of buildup or anything. Like, it still needs to be a simple movie, but it's just a matter of like putting the dialogue and the beats in that we get that idea. And I don't think we ever really do. And I think that the stylized direction makes up for that at times. I think that moving kind of rapidly between different setups is certainly helpful, but it does lead back to that. That's a 90s thriller feel. Fun fact, by the way, a little bit of trivia that I just remembered, because Alan Silvestri, that's the name of the composer. And of course, he works on Marvel movies now, and he's a huge force. He's responsible for the Avengers theme, I think.
Really? That's a classic.
But he started off working back in the 70s in New York, and one of his first gigs, and I don't even think he's fully credited for this, but I know he's credited as the composer, but I don't think he's credited for his in-film performance. But he is in the Gerard Damiano, Deep Throat director, masterpiece, Let My Puppets Come, from 1976.
Oh, you got that one on the shelf right over here.
I actually do. I did a whole video on Let My Puppets Come. It's one of my favorite movies. And Alan Silvestri, I don't know that he did all of the compositions for it. I think it was like a mix of composers, but he is a major part of the film. And so if you were curious, the composer of Judgment Night and Avengers Endgame also did a puppet porn back in the 70s. So
guys, if you want to see the most bonkers shit you'll ever see in your life, go to vinegarsyndrome.com and buy a copy of Let My Puppets Come. I don't know if the slipcover is still available, but you should just own it regardless. It's just a piece of cardboard. Go get
I think the slipcover did finally sell out. But yeah, it's very worth owning. It's a great release in more ways than one. And it's not even really...
I get it.
It's not even... Like, I say it's a puppet porno. It's so weird because I honestly, when I first watched it, I was very uncertain because I actually watched it with a bunch of friends. I had a bunch of friends over. And this was like another plan for 2020 was I was going to start doing movie nights every week. That fucking fell through. But it was like 4 or 5 movies, and one of them, the one that almost cleared the room, was Let My Puppets Come. And up until that point, I hadn't seen it. I was kind of just basing it off of like what I knew, and I was worried because like fuck, if there's like a felt cock going into a real lady's vagina, this is going to turn out very poorly. But there's not. It's all puppet fucking. But even then, it's mostly just gags about like, oh, that old puppet has a boner during this musical number. Composed by Alan Silvestri. You'll know his name, kids. and
man.
you know, there's some real life female nudity, and I think maybe like one or two vaginas. I don't really remember that
Oh, really?
aspect, but most
Okay.
of it's just like these puppets trying to get the trying to make a porno so they can make some money, and they all work for an advertising firm or something, and it's their first time making a porno, and they get help from other puppets and some rando people and this creepy like hip black chick puppet who has just creepy real life hands, and it's a fucking ride. I cannot recommend it enough. I'm really good at talking about movies that are not the main focus of a podcast.
Oh no, you're
by
fine.
the way,
You're fine. I'm enjoying this.
We're
And
good
I also
at
apologize.
talking about anything that's not the main focus. Apparently, we love to go off on these tangents, so it's appreciated. Trust me.
Well, that's good. I talk a lot. It's especially now that I used before the world ended. I was a photographer for a nerd bar in Las Vegas called Millennium Fandom Bar. And it still is not reopened because the owner, Alex, is a real mensch and does not want to endanger any of his regulars. And that was my main source of social interaction for because I'm a father, so I don't go anywhere unless I'm working. And I never thought I would miss it, but I miss talking to those fucking nerds so much.
Nice.
Well, until they reopen, you're always welcome to come back here on Rap Rankings and Moulz Mel at the movies to talk to these fucking nerds, Moulz Mel.
I appreciate it.
Can I just say, I gotta say this because I'm gonna watch this film. I've never seen this puppet porn, but even though I've never seen it, this is my review.
Man, I like that shit. That shit is great to me.
That's my review already. I don't need to see it. I can tell this is right up my alley.
It's great. It's legitimately just a really fun film. I thought it was going to be one of those things that I bought just to be able to say, hey, look at this thing. I own a puppet poem.
Right.
And instead it became an absolute favorite. Regarding the soundtrack for this movie, I had this problem with soundtracks where I really don't notice them that much in the movie, unless it's a musical, obviously. I get very in deep in the movie, and the music definitely, pushes me whatever direction it needs to, but I don't really notice it that much. In fact, and I feel like this is going to show how bad I am at picking up on musical cues, I only really noticed the soundtrack maybe once. And then while I was cooking earlier, right before I came on here, I had the soundtrack just fucking blasting from my Google Home speaker in my kitchen while I was using my air fryers. And I gotta say, I was pretty pumped up by it. It was it was kind of a banger. I can see it being very important to the evolution of I guess hip hop music. It's such a weird medley of, I guess, what is it, like hip hop and metal?
Yeah, it's different. It seems to be different types of rap and different types of rock just melding together and creating this thing. I mean, conceptually, I was really hyped to hear it, because I'm like, oh, I love stuff like this, and while the execution wasn't all the way there for me, there were definitely bright spots on here for me. So yeah, I, as a pump up like album, I would say, yeah, it probably hits the spot, more so than not.
My toddler was jamming out to it too, so it does
great.
get that seal of approval.
If it gets the toddler seal of approval, then what the fuck do we know? But if you like this one, I do think you should check out the compilation Loud Rocks from Loud Records. They did a System of a Down and Wu-Tang Clan collaboration on there.
Oh my God.
Everlast and Mobb Deep. They did Tom Morello, Chad Smith and Wu-Tang Clan. Seven Dust and Exhibit. Grunge is Dead and M.O.P. Big Pun and Shoot His Groove. Sick of It All and Mobb Deep. Incubus and Big Pun, still not a player.
Really? Oh,
yeah,
this is news to me. I'm an Incubus fan. So
Static X and Dead Prez hip hop. So basically, not original songs, but bringing the rock bands in to remix some of the popular songs from these artists with the artists.
Huh.
So that's Loud Rocks. It's from 2000
myself,
or maybe 99, but check it out if you like the soundtrack. And yeah, I mean, there's stuff on this soundtrack I do enjoy. I like that they open the film with the De La Soul song. That's one of my favorites on the soundtrack.
Traveling at the speed.
And
yeah, I'm a big fan of that intro.
When Dennis Leary and his goons are outside, and then the Hood shows up to figure out what is this guy and what's he here to do. The Onyx song with Biohazard, the title track is playing. I'm a big fan of that one. But we'll get into it in our review. We'll talk some more about it. Or talk about it some more, rather, coming up. But Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course, my pleasure. I like attention.
Where can they find you if you want some more attention? Where are all the places they can find you? Your Patreon, the YouTube, everything.
I do have a YouTube channel. You can just search Michael Keane. I'm the one that's not the guitarist. But I think my channel, like the no one uses the channel like name thing, the URL. But yeah, I'm just type in Michael Keane Vinegar Syndrome and you'll find a fucking dozen reviews of mine. And I'm always happy to have more subscribers. I'm also on Patreon. Just again, you can search Michael Keane. It's not that hard. And then I did snag Michael Keane on Twitter before that fucking faceless guitarist could grab it. So I am at Michael Keane on Twitter. That's the social media I use the most. I do have an Instagram, but I'm ironically, for a photographer, I don't actually use Instagram ever. I just like to, pump out shitty like hot takes on Twitter. That's my brand, baby. But yeah, come say hi to my digital face, you fucks.
I love that energy.
Well, let's take you out with a nice Moulz Mel at the Movies outro. And again, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, let me load the music back in. I'll be forgetting that. I almost loaded the wrong music in. The beat I made.
We gotta get this classic because I got some more copy to read.
Oh, how exciting. All right, here you go. Let me see. Rap rankings, assets. All right, take it away.
Next week on Moulz Mel at the Movies, it's only right that Moulz Mel's old pal Jay-Z returns for a review of the 1998 direct-to-video classic Streets is Watching. But will the film's cult classic status be solidified beyond a reasonable doubt? Or will it be the worst film we have ever seen in our lifetime? Find out next week on Moulz Mel at the Movies.
Hey, it's Mel from Rap Rankings. To hear the full episode this clip comes from and all of the other episodes, check the link in the description, stop by raprankings.com, or search Rap Rankings on your favorite podcast platform. And please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting to help us grow the channel and continue our journey as hip-hop's first and premier extreme podcast.